So, armed with the knowledge of our first and second video, which is our basics in 3D printing and our dual color in 3D printing, we have now got the knowledge collectively to do the intended purpose behind our 3D printing machine, which is 3D letter channel printing. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So, today we're going to be doing a single letter. For the sake of time, we're going to only do it a certain size. If we're not going to do the whole bed, it's going to take way too long to print. So let's get straight to it and show you how to do it so that you can copy the theory over to any logo or letter you want. Okay, so depending on what program you have, you are going to then head on over to that program that you have that is an AI or vector-based program. And if you do not have, let's say for instance, CorelDRAW or Illustrator from Photoshop, then you can't do it here. You're going to have to do it in our free program that we use on the internet, which is TinkerCAD. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is head on over to our text tool over there. We click on that, and then you can click anywhere on your page. From there, you can go ahead and just take away what you don't want and type out the word or letter that you're looking for. And in this case, I'm just going to do the letter L. Now we need to choose what font. Now we can obviously, if you've got your design program, you can choose everything to its nth degree and the correct font as well as the correct logo for the customer. So in this case, I'm just going to show you the basics. So we're going to go and see which font is going to suit us best. And I'm going to pick that one in particular because it's quite nice and straight. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and done that, we now need to make this bigger so that we have more space to see what's going on. And then once we're finished, we can go ahead and actually make this to the correct size that we're looking for. So the first thing we need to do is make our base. Now, there are so many ways that you can do letter channel printing, but I'm going to show you the way that I understand it, and also depends on what LEDs you're going to use as well, whether it's strips or just single LEDs that you have to wire up manually. So for instance, I'm going to be doing the strip LED and making sure that we've got an entry here and an exit inside here, so that when you're doing a letter, for instance, you've got an entry behind the letter, then you've got your LED running along inside, and then it goes out again into the baseboard, which then can loop to your next letter. So that being said, let's go ahead and make this a lot bigger, and then we can start building this up. So first of all, I want to make this as large as possible. Then we're going to reduce the height, and only the height, so that we can have a base layer. Okay, now if you hold in shift and you change anything, it will do it in respective of its size. So if you don't want that to happen, just let go of shift, and then you can just move it in whatever direction you want. So for instance, if we're going to go and make this 50% smaller, we're going to stay with 20 mils in height for our base. Next thing we can do is shift over to the top side so we can see from the top. Now we need to create a little hole that we can punch out of our base layer, and then we can start creating our channel. So we'll click on the basic hole here. We make sure that our segments and sides are max, otherwise you get a jagged circle. So from there, we can move that on over to here, and as you can see, it's a little bit too big. So we're going to change that all the way to around about 10 mil, so that we've got a 5 mil opening, and that should be good enough to allow a strip of LEDs through. Again, this is just theory. We're not actually going to put LEDs inside of it, just because we're downscaling it, so it's not going to be its true size. So once we've put in a hole, and keep in mind, you can do a hole, or you can go ahead and even do and make yourself a rectangle. A rectangle would be better for a strip of LEDs to come through. Make that a bit taller, make that shorter on the one side, and about there is good. So now, once we've placed that, we need to make sure that we have got also another one here at the base, and also facing that direction. So we're going to Control and C and then Control V to copy. You could just right click and duplicate, or you can go to the top left here once it's selected and use the duplicate option there. Once we've moved that one over there, we can hold down our Shift button on our keyboard and then touch that arrow there and rotate with the right direction in mind, which is going to be 90 degrees, and then we just put that there. So now that we've done that and it's more or less in the right place, can just move it accordingly there. So now that we've got that, I'm purposely making these items much taller, because what we need to do is, once we've built our next part of the U channel, you're going to have to stamp that out and make sure that it's got stamped through all of the artwork and not just the base layer. So you can leave it there and only group it later once we're finished. So what I like to do is make sure I turn my snap grid to 0.1 mil rather, and then that allows you to get better lining up when you are moving everything with your arrows. As you can see, that means that you can line it up more straight. You can even turn it off to 0 so that you've got even more precision. Okay, so now that's that done, what we need to do next is create the sidewalls for our lettering. So I'm gonna basically go ahead and duplicate the L, and we just move it right next to it. We can change the color to any other color, we can change it to orange. And once we've got it there, we're just gonna select these two only, not our punch out holes. And we're just going to align them so that they're in the same exact place. And if it's moved completely over, don't worry too much. You can always just select it and then move it back to where it was meant to be. And that is correct there. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and select our red, and we can move that up and leaving orange below. And we're not going to go as tall. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and we need to now punch out a section here in the middle that's going to allow us to line the LED strip. So the easiest way to do that is either in your design program, you add a stroke to your design and save that separately so that you can, irrespective or proportionately, make something that's smaller. So if you don't have that option, you're going to have to do it manually like so, and we'll have to change this color to another color. We'll go blue, and we just need to copy the length and size of the width here, or a little bit smaller, doesn't really matter. We're going to go a bit smaller. Okay, so now that that's done, we can now drag that out to about here. Just making sure we've got the same size all the way around. Okay, that's going to work, so we'll drag that out all the way there. And you just hold in your scroll on your mouse, click it in, and then you can move around on your board. And again, stopping just before there. And then we can go ahead and copy another one. And we're going to rotate this one. And this is just merely to do the cutout that we are looking for. So you don't have to physically use these shapes. You can use anything that's available there. You can even make the edges rounded if you want. So yeah, now that we've got the same gap all the way around, what we're going to go ahead and do is select both of our blue pieces, just like so. And we're going to group them together so that they're one piece. And then from there, what I need to do is move the blue layer down as if we're going to be punching something out. And we're also going to turn it into a hole, just like this. And that's going to allow us to punch out the area that we need within this letter. So let's go ahead and just see what size we've got here. We've got 20 mils, and if we bring it to the side here, we can actually see how far down it's going to go. So if we are going to do like that, then what we need to do is just have see how far down you want to do this. And I think that you should leave yourself at least around a 4mm base so that the letter is strong, and then you can start your crop from above that. So let's go ahead and move this to about 4mm above. And actually, sorry, we're going to go 6 because we're going to make this smaller, half the size. So that'll be a 3mm base. So we'll go from there, and then we need to increase the size so that we can see it being punched out all the way. And what we're going to go ahead and do here now is select everything, make sure everything's selected, and we're going to go ahead and group it. And as you can see, once that's done, you have now got a inside hole within your letter that allows you to put your LED strip inside, and then from there you can either print a top layer separately that you push in, which we can add in here, or we can go ahead and cut a piece of perspex that can also slide into the top if you want a different colored top, or you can print a translucent layer on top. This is merely up to you and how you would like to do it, depends on your customer. Okay, so now that it's equal sides all the way around, we can go ahead and just select only our blue, and we are going to group that so it's one piece. And then from here, what we need to do is change this to our hole, because we need to punch out that hole so that we have got space for our LED strip to sit inside. Now, before we go ahead and punch out this hole, we need to decide one of two things. First, you can either print the top layer of your letter, so which means you're not going to have a cutout all the way through. We're going to have a cutout, and then we're going to put a lid back on top. But that lid is going to be printed separately to our actual letter, because that will have to be glued on separately. Or what we can do is leave space for a piece of perspex that we can cut out and also slide in through the top as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch this out. Then from there, I'm going to make a separate piece of artwork that we're going to print, 3D print, and then glue on top once we've put our LED strip inside. And this is all theory. Remember, we're doing it on a much smaller scale, so I can't physically do the LED strip today, but this is going to show you the basic principles of how to do it when you're doing it to size. So what we need to do here is make sure that we have got the exact position where we're going to be punching out, and then group everything and do it. So what I like to do is have a base of at least 4mm when you're printing your letter, so that you've got a nice surface to mount that letter to another surface without it cracking or deforming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move this down and get to about 6mm away from the bottom of the base. Because this is going to be half the original size, we're going to have a 3mm base. There's no point wasting plastic today, so we're going to go down to 6. And once we're at 6, there we go. You can always just click in there and give the accurate number, so you can have 6 point whatever if you would like. Once we've got that, we can go ahead and stretch the height of this so that you can eventually see it. And once you can see it, now we are ready to punch a hole out. But just before we do that, we need to make sure that we copy another one of these layers, as this is going to be the top layer, which has to be glued edge to edge and flush with the outside wall, not the inside. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and select the entire design, and we go over to our group function there and we group. And there you go. You can see that you have now got a cut out letter, and it's got a U channel inside basically. And that means that you can pull in your LED strip there, lay it down, glue it, and take it back out again and go to the next layer or next letter. Now what we need to do is take that one that we copied beforehand, and we need to now make a decision on how thick that needs to be printed, because that's going to be taken and glued to the top of this one. So you could do this out of translucent filament or any other color that matches the design. Can be the same color as the outer wall, that is your choice. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that it's sitting flat on our build plate, and you can go ahead and make sure you type in 0 just to make sure. And then, because this is going to be half the size, again we're going to be doing a 3mm thickness, so we're going to make it 6mm because we're going to downsize it. So now that we've got that as a separate item, we can go ahead and save these separately for print. So now we're going to go ahead, select our first one, we're going to go over to export on the top right there, and we're going to pick STL. And once you've saved those separately as STLs, then we'll head over to our Cura software. So now all we need to do is go ahead and open it up in our Cura software, and we're going to start off with our U channel piece, which is the most important. And there it is there. We are just gonna go around and do a good once over just to make sure that everything is correct and nothing got corrupt. So everything looks to be correct here. Now what we are going to do here is decide where we want color and where we want it to change. So we are going to be running with white and blue today, and our number one color is white and our second color is blue. Now you can always go and change your preset color for the 1 and 2, but I'm just always going to leave it as red and blue, and you just need to remember what color you load into your printer and whether it's sequence 1 or sequence 2. So for instance, if you want to, you can always start with your color number 2 and end off with color number 1 if you've put the colors the wrong way around. But you need to make sure that you've selected and put the colors in the printer first before you come and do it here, because otherwise you'll need to do a quick change while it's printing when you realize it's printing the wrong color, or you might have to stop the job completely. So rather just make sure you do that process first. Load the colors you want in the sequence you want first, then come and do the design aspect. So what we need to do is start creating a layer separation that allows you to choose what color and where. So the first thing we're going to do is go and select our model. We're going to go over to our support blocker, and we're going to click on our model, and then we have got this extra rectangle or square sitting there. And now what we want to do is select that only, and we want to move that to make it a certain size. So we're going to click out, click back again, and then we can go ahead and start editing it. Okay, so now that it shows you those arrows, we can go ahead and either start moving it around or making it a certain size. So what I like to do is move it out the way so we can see it entirely. Then we go to our scale there, and we're going to untick uniform scaling so that we can make it the actual size we need it to be. So the best thing to do is make it as bigger than your design as possible, so that you don't have anything that isn't actually overlaid by this rectangle. So now that we've made it much bigger than our item, we can now go back to our move option, and we can move it over our design and see if we've covered everything. Okay, so it is much bigger, a little bit too big, so we're going to go back and just make it a little bit smaller. All right, now that we've done that, we now need to decide where we are going to have this color change. Are we wanting it to do halfway? Are we wanting it to change the color more than once? You can do with your two colors up to as many color changes between those two as you want within the design, obviously depending on how much space you're going to be printing with. So for instance, we always start with the bottom. So we're going to take this and we're going to move it, and we're going to go a little bit under our build plate. And what I mean by that is I'm literally moving it so that it's underneath, so you cannot physically move it so that it just covers the base plate. So the easiest way is just to go underneath a little bit. So now that you've got your shape where it needs to be, we now need to go and do one step further and synchronize it to the color that we want. So we're going to go over to our per model. We're going to select modify settings for overlaps, and we are going to do cutting mesh. And then you see it changes to red, and that is our first color. So that means our first color is going to be white, where actually I would prefer if the white was on top and the blue would be on the bottom. So if, for instance, the LEDs are inside that U channel, no light is coming out the first section of the design, and it's only blowing out through the top, because we also want our top layer to be white, and that's going to match with the color of the LEDs. So once we've gone ahead and done that, we've changed it to cutting mesh, and we've selected the color that we want, which is on the left. We are going to change that to the blue color. Now all we need to do is go ahead and select our eraser there at the bottom, and we can go ahead and say multiply by 1. And now we have a second shape. So all you got to do is go over to that shape and select it and choose to the number 1, which then it changes to red. And from there we go to our move option, and we can now go ahead and move it to its original position like that one. And now we can start moving it up to do our second color. So once we've got that side angle, we can go to scale, make it taller, and we are not going to overlap these two colors. You need to make sure that they're pretty much just on top of each other and not overlapping. And you can do this more precisely if you know the height of your first shape. Then you can type that in on your Z axis here to move it accordingly to that height. So if you know that, you can type that in. If not, you can take a thumb suck and just zoom in and see whether or not there is a gap in the layers. And if you're not so sure, you overlap it a little bit and see whether or not your printer will accept it when it goes to print. So I'm going to overlap just a little bit slightly, and there we go. So now that we have finished that and we've chosen where our two colors are going to be, I need you to now go ahead and go to the previous video where we showed you dual color and copy the settings that you need for your purge tower, which is all here on the right hand side. Once you've copied those settings and you've done it to the T, you can go ahead and slice your model, download it onto the memory stick, and we can go straight to the printer. For all machine settings and program settings, I refer to the previous videos that we have done for the 3D printers, purely because those settings are very important to follow. Now, if you don't know where to go and you haven't seen those before, I encourage you to go to YouTube and type in Achievement Matters, and once you land on that page, go to the search button and search 3D printer, and you will see every video that we've made so far available there to watch. And for other videos that you might be interested in, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the notification button, which will allow you to be sent notifications once we've got new videos uploaded for your interest. So now that we have finished this one, we now need to do the top layer, which is also going to be white. So we're going to go ahead and delete what we've got here and then load in our top layer. Okay, there we have it. There's our L top layer that we've just loaded in, and just to make sure it's got some height to it. So now here we are not going to be changing this to two different colors, purely because 40% of the way we decided to change it to white. So this top piece has to be white as well. And that's going to settle this design. So we're going to go ahead and just rip it and slice it just the way it is and save it to our memory stick. And then once that's done and printed, we can then piece together our design. So I've gone ahead and I've taken off our main piece here, and while the top layer is printing, I'm going to just go ahead and talk about this so we don't waste some time. So if you hadn't noticed, there was some excess plastic around the edges and a bit of stringing, which is perfectly normal because that's how the plastic rests as it's moving from position to position. So all you're going to need to do is get your supplied clippers or cutters that you get with your machine, and you're just going to go ahead and cut off everything that you don't need, which I've already done, just to show you what it would look like when it's actually finished. Now keep in mind that this item is going to be up above your head, and people are not going to see it up close looking at it like this. They're going to see it from at least 3 meters away. So your finishing will only be done properly. You're going to sand this once you've glued everything together, after you've pieced everything together, and once you've sanded it, you can then say it's completely finished. And even then, if you are not happy with it, you can even go and paint a glossy layer over it, just to get the desired effect that you're looking for the customer. But all in all, basically we are wanting to look inside here and explain what we've done here. So basically here at the top we have got our slit, our cut out area, and here at the bottom as well, and that is purely for our LED strip to enter from behind. Let's say for instance this was on a board, and inside the board has got all your electronics, and you're going to feed from behind the board through into your letter, put your LED strip down here, then across here, and then back into that hole and back into the board, which will continue to the next letter. And that is basically how you are going to do the LED strip. And like I said to you, you can make the size hole whatever shape you would like, however big you would like, according to your LED strip that you're going to use. So I've got one right here in front of me just to show you as an example. Obviously it's way too big because we did this as a downscaled item. So you can basically see what I'm referring to, and this is a LED strip that you can buy as is, and you get them in different lengths because obviously you need bigger letters, smaller letters, so you'll need to just figure out how long of a length you'll need. But what's great about this stuff is you can join it anywhere, and it's very nice to use. All you have to do with this one is cut the first section of the silicone top piece up until about here where my thumb is, and you can cut a, let's say, 45-degree angle out of this top section so that you can fold it and go around a corner. And that's going to not break any connections of your LED, because the LED connections are actually at the bottom of this one and not on the top. The top is merely just an illumination strip that allows the light to travel correctly throughout the whole strip. So you can just cut whatever degree angle you need and then fold it that direction. Keep in mind this is already flexible, so this is going to help you for doing rounded letters like A's and O's and G's and so on like that. So this is basically one of the things you can use. You can also use the flat LED strip with no silicone on top. It is completely up to you. So that is something that you have to see. Depending on what LED strip you're going to use, depends on the type of U channel that you're going to create inside, as well as those holes. So, and that's basically it for how we're going to print this and the manner of which we're going to print it. So once you've gone ahead and put your LED strip in, you can then take the top layer, which is still printing, and use ordinary super glue and super glue it to the top piece of your actual letter. And then once that's dried, you can then sand your edges and make sure everything's flush so it doesn't look like you've pieced together things. Because if you do it incorrectly, you can actually see the layer separations and the customer's not going to be happy. Again, you could always use Perspex and do it opaque, whatever color you need, but you can also print it in see-through or just use a color of your choice for the top. And that's basically how you print with a 3D letter channel.